everybody. Welcome to the Hallmark Podcast. And we're really excited to talk again to Lilah Fitzgerald. And now we can add author to her long list of, of skills and accomplishments because she has a new book coming out, Stars and Swashbucklers. And Lilah, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us.
Thank you for chatting with me. I'm really excited.
Yeah, can you believe it's our 5th time talking with you? I
mean, part of me feels like we've done way more than that, and part of me we've done way less.
It's true, because we do chat from time to time on social media and stuff like that. But yeah, we first talked to you in July of 2018.
Yeah. Wow.
Wild, huh?
Yeah.
It's almost been 5 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But how have you been? How have things been going for you?
Pretty good. Very, very busy, but very good. How about you?
Doing good. We've had the most crazy winter weather that you could imagine here in Utah. It's probably been the stormiest winter I've ever lived here.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's like setting records. Even today we have more snow. Seems like it's never gonna stop.
Weather is just insane. I've been in LA for a little more than a month and it's just rained pretty much the entire time.
Yeah, I know. I went to Los Angeles in February and yeah, torrential downpours the whole time.
So much for my little winter getaway.
Yeah, it even snowed in Disneyland.
Yep.
Which is wild. They never had in the history of the park.
Nope. First time for everything.
Yeah, first time for everything. Yeah, well, I really admire you very much, and you have so many things that you're interested in and that you do. Of course, you had the dance for so long. It seems like from social media, you're taking a little break from that. Is that right?
Still pretty into the dance. I had to step back from the company I was in because, way too busy with acting roles.
Right.
Still doing a lot of classes. I just haven't had time to post about it on social media. I always, every so often when I take a class, I'm like, oh, I need to get a photo so people know I still do this.
Yeah, I mean, do you really do something if you don't post about it on social? That's the sad reality of my life.
Exactly.
Well, good. And you've done sailing too?
Yes. So I'm excited. Starting up coaching again this month. So that'll be pretty fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. Did you get to use some of your sailing experience in when writing the book?
Actually, I started sailing because of the book. So
no way.
So much to do with boats, I was like, I need to know how to sail a ship to write the book. Signed up for a little sailing class. Absolutely hated it. It was like the worst thing I'd ever done. And I went home after I think like my 3rd session or something. And I said to my mom, I was just like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. I quit. This is awful. I'm terrible at this. She was like, just try one more class. Just see what happens. And then everything clicked and I love it now. There's a point sailing when everything makes sense, because to start sailing, we kind of have to tell people all the information, stick them in a boat, throw them out to the ocean, say good luck. Obviously with safety precautions in place, but there's no way to really slowly teach sailing. So there's just kind of a point when finally everything makes sense. And luckily I stuck around until that clicked.
Is it hard? Because the water up there is pretty cold. Like year round, it's cold.
I mean, we've had some pretty hot summers lately in Vancouver, so we've been lucky for that. But the January sailing was a little bit intense, even with the wetsuit.
Yeah, I bet that would be. I love the ocean, though. I'm jealous of that you get to be at, because again, obviously I live in a landlocked state, so it's not ideal for ocean.
Yeah, I love the ocean, love sailing.
That's so cool.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
So you have been busy acting, as you said. So you had this Monster High role. And so I'm curious about this, how long did it take you to get that makeup on?
About 2 hours.
Oh, wow. That's not
Sometimes up to 3 if things went where we had more time, but we got it down to a nice little science and we could whip that out in 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is it like irritating at all to have that makeup on like that?
It's
so thick.
I have very sensitive skin. I'm just a very sensitive person across the board. And so my skin does not enjoy green paint every day. But our makeup team is super great. Like they wash us up at the end of the day and, offer extra skincare stuff. So that's nice.
That's good. So you were kind of a villain a little bit, mean girl, right?
I mean,
I haven't seen it, to be honest.
She likes to pull some pranks. At the end of the day, definitely besties with everyone, but she doesn't hold back from pulling pranks and telling people off for stepping on her grave.
Oh, wow. So you must have been stoked when you got that. Did you self-tape like an audition?
Yeah, so I was pretty lucky and very surprised with that one. It was one take. Just one, I think actually, no, it was 2 scenes, but it was just one audition, okay, just send us this. I did it in my room, gave a crazy laugh out for them, and didn't hear, thought, okay, they've moved on, they've gone a different direction. Obviously they'll be doing callbacks and stuff for this. And then they didn't. They were just like, no, we hired you. You're good.
Like what? So laugh out. So they just have you laugh on camera?
Well, because one of the scenes, the main scene that I kind of give for Gulia is this maniacal laugh when I'm trying to prank Claudine. And so apparently I booked the role because I was the only one who went for the laugh as much as I did. And so I was like, okay, always commit 100%.
Yeah, there you go. That's cool. Do you know what they're going to be doing more?
Yes, so we actually just finished filming the second one in February, which I feel like I have to stop saying we just finished filming it because it's been a month already. But it ended end of February. It counts. I'm gonna keep going with it.
Yeah.
And that was super fun. So that'll come out this year, which will be really nice.
Yeah, that's great. So you also got a role on Lucky Hank, and this was Bob Odenkirk. So that must have been wild.
Absolutely crazy insane. I was so excited about that. Oh my god.
Yeah. So you just self-taped for that as well?
Yeah, it was actually the same deal where it was one round. I self-taped once again, thought, oh, this is such a amazing opportunity. It's Bob Odenkirk and all these other amazing people. I mean, Peter Farrelly as a director. There's no way I'm gonna book it. And then I got the whole, hey, you're shortlisted for this, and I was like, wow, okay. Me and one other girl, and then I booked it.
That's so cool. And so what's your role on Lucky Hank?
So I'm one of the students at the school. It takes place, it follows Hank, who's a professor at this underfunded college. And I'm one of the students, and I help form a committee to avert mediocrity, but I have ulterior motives.
So is this a college or a high school?
It's a college. And it basically focuses on, the professors at the college, some of the students, and also Hank's home life, just in the craziness of being alive and your life not being exactly what you thought it would be and how to figure that all out.
So is this your first adult role, not playing a teenager or a child?
Technically, the first role where I worked as an adult was on Honey Girls. I was 17 at the time, not 18, but I was legal 18, so I was able to work as an adult.
But your character was still a teen.
Yeah, so
is this one where is this your first role where your character's not a teenager?
I mean, I think technically she might still be a teenager.
Like
but
18 or 19. Okay.
it's not in the script what age I am, so I can pretend I'm playing 20. So I'm gonna go with yes. This is my
Yes.
first time like being out of high school.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Type rules.
Cool. That's great. That's exciting. I'm so behind on television shows, but it sounds like a real fun show.
It's amazing. They really just all of the actors that I got to work with were so incredible, and they built such an amazing cast to show this story. Everyone is hilarious but still grounded, and it's really just one of the best shows I've ever gotten to work on.
That's great. All right. Well, let's talk about Stars and Swashbucklers. So you had this idea way back, it sounds like, when you were starting sailing, things like that. You've had this idea for the story. Is that right?
Yes. So it was actually inspired by a dream I had when I was, I think, only 15. And then I kind of finished it around when I was 16-ish. I don't fully remember. I think I was 15, 16 when I wrote the book. But the dream happened in November, and it was just a dreary November, and I was, under the pressures of acting and dance, and felt like I was not good enough, and also just the regular being a teenage girl stuff that's really, really hard. And I had this incredible dream that I just wished was reality, because I grew up reading fantasy books, and my entire life I was sort of just waiting to be stolen by fairies and thinking, real life won't matter. I just have to wait it out. And there's that kind of, moment when you realize, oh, wait, those were all stories. That's not going to happen to me. And so this dream, I kind of just was so visual, so real, that I just desperately wanted it to be real life. And so I realized it was not healthy to keep wishing my days away, wishing I could fall asleep and go back to the dream. And so I started writing it into a book. And I didn't write it for anyone else. I didn't actually plan to publish it. So this is very, very scary. It was almost just fan fiction for my dream, for me to have an escape from the hardness of being a teenager. And so then, over the months, eventually it became an actual novel. I finished off at one of the points of the dream, and I realized, I wrote a book. I can't just not do anything with it now. So my mom got like a 600-page manuscript in her Gmail inbox out of the blue, because I wrote it entirely in secret, because I didn't want anyone to know that I was writing a book, because as soon as I tell a story, it's already been told and it doesn't need to be told anymore. And I just wanted to keep the dream to myself and have it be my secret place.
Wow, that's impressive. So was this dream, like, did you have multiple kind of episodes of this dream, or was it just the one time?
It was one time, but fun fact about me, I have very cinematic dreams and very in-depth action plot adventure dreams that can span for months to years, technically, in the dream. And then I wake up and I'm like, woo, that was a whole life lived.
Wow.
So it was a very, very intense dream that felt very long, probably took place over 20 minutes. But, it gave me kind of the entire plot for a few books. And then my mind sort of spiraled on with what will happen in the rest of it.
Wow. So you said you've been a big fantasy reader. Were there some in particular that were your inspiration aside from the dream?
I mean, a huge inspiration for me as a reader, I love Maggie Stiefvater and her work. She's just such a beautiful writer, and her prose is so elegant. And so it's funny, I was writing the second half of Stars and Swashbucklers the first time around on a train trip across Canada with my sister, still in secret. But I managed to run into Maggie Stiefvater, who is an author that I really, really love. And admire, obviously, and she was on the same train as me, which was just a crazy coincidence to have that happen while I was trying to finish it. So I ran into her into the train station, and then that very night I managed to finish my first draft.
Did you meet her and everything?
Yeah.
What books has she written? I don't know that name.
She's done quite a few, but my favorite is The Raven Cycle. It's probably one of the most popular, and just, a good story of, found friends and found family, and, finding your way in the world alongside magic and dead Welsh kings.
Oh, nice. That's so cool.
Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by WRated, the podcast where we willingly watch the world's worst rated movies. Join me, Daisy,
and me, Claire, as we break down the IMDb Bottom 100, choosing a different film from the list every episode.
We take a deep dive into the plot, production, release, and reviews, usually with a special guest, to uncover if these films are truly as bad as everyone says they are.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Good Pods, and anywhere else you find your podcasts.
So you would probably classify yourself as a pantser then, and not a plotter. Have you heard that phrase, the terminology?
I actually am a plotter. Surprisingly, I had been a pantser before when I feel like lots of people try to write books when they're kids, when they love fantasy. They're like, oh, I'm going to write a book. I have a story idea. And I would just, wing it. I'd be like, the story will come to me. And it did not. So when this story was kind of, I'd have these great ideas, but I didn't flesh out where I was going with it. And then I'd talk about it and then it would fall away from my brain and it wasn't burning there anymore. It wasn't important.
Mm-hmm.
So for this, since I kind of had the whole thing handed to me by my subconscious, I didn't want to forget it. So the first thing I kind of did was just write down everything that happened and just detail the entire thing. And then I split that up and broke it into chapters. And this is what will happen in chapter 1. This is what will happen in chapter 2. I have a full notebook. It's very intense, the plotting. I think it, took like 60 pages of a notebook at least. But it made me able to finish the book.
That is really interesting, really cool. So tell us a little bit about the story for audiences that haven't read it.
So it takes place in a futuristic fantasy world where Earth has actually broken into islands floating between the stars, and ships sail through the stars like right now they sail across the ocean. And so our protagonist is Anya Marcox. She is a 16-year-old girl who has been told her entire life that she's average, but she wants nothing more than to be a privateer. However, she doesn't believe she's capable of that, and she is stuck in steerage aboard the Hatho, which is this luxury cruise airship headed to an island across the galaxy from where she's always lived. And while she's on there, she finds out about this relic that could change the fate of the islands. And so she won't give up this one chance to prove herself and prove she can be a privateer. And she ends up pulled into the world of rebels and royals and privateers that are a little bit more practiced than she is, and magic and her own nightmares that are definitely more real than she thinks they are.
Yes. So how did you come up with, aside from the dream, you come up with this world and the Montmorency family?
So for me, the dream kind of hated me the whole, spaceships blended with a fantasy world. We've got this sci-fi tech, but old Celtic magic. All taking place, between the stars, hopping from islands, which, thank you, subconscious. I would not have been that well awake.
It kind of felt a little steampunky to me.
It's very steampunk. It's kind of hitting right in the space opera steampunk vibe. That, like I said, I don't know how I came up with, but I'm not doubting it. But with the whole Montmorency bloodline, I have a lot of plans. Because I, after having the idea for Stars and Swashbucklers, which was originally called the Cavill Brothers Saga, but then changed because, we focus more on Anya and what her life will lead her to do, as you will kind of find out in the first few pages of the book with the note from the historian. You'll kind of see why it's called the Last Montmorency Saga, although it's about Anya. And all these ideas that I was having for books, I realized that they fit inside this world, even if the dream didn't originally that I would have, that was because I kept having these cool dreams after Stars and Swashbucklers, that I was like, that would make a good book. That would make a good book. They didn't burn as brightly as Stars and Swashbucklers, but still I was realizing, oh, that could actually really work in this world. And as I started writing Stars and Swashbucklers, I was coming up with all these ideas. Like, you'll see the Civil War mentioned, you'll see the like Antoinette Montmorency mentioned, who is why Anya is called Antoinette, her namesake. And you'll see all of these things that are mentioned that I actually have plans to write books about, because I'm going to be chronicling the entire history of the broken world in reverse. And I wanted a common thread more so than just the world to pull me through. And I sort of, as I was writing, I realized what better way than having every story in some small form or big form take place with a Montmorency either orbiting the edges of it or right in the center.
Wow. How do you fit all of this in, all of your interests, all of your goals, and writing more of these stories? Like, how do you balance it all?
I'm gonna be so honest, I don't.
Yeah.
I do somehow find time for all the things, but I do often feel like I don't have time for it. And it often means that, I'm up till 3 a.m. writing, because the other issue is that's when I do my best writing is at night, and then I'm very tired the next day. But although I don't always get the best sleep, and, the sleep debt will catch up to me eventually, it hasn't yet. And I'm just going to keep working until it does.
Yeah, that's great. So the story has pirates, royals, fairies, magic, and what you call the being. Why don't you elaborate a little bit on those fantasy elements?
So calling, all of these things, finding names for them was definitely hard, because in my dream, even the names of the characters in the story, I couldn't remember them when I woke up. So I had to kind of do some searching on online baby name sites to be like, what were their names? Because I could kind of remember and find things that fit. And then with calling things beings and the mist and stuff, I wanted something that, beings is kind of a term for fairies. But in the world that Anya lives in, the Montmorencys have completely eradicated any mention of magic and any mention of anything supernatural. So we don't call things usually by their actual names. So, an elf and a dragon would both be a being in this world, because we just consider them these evil creatures that are other, and the, things that go bump in the night. And, I wanted to have something that seemed other and seemed larger than able to have an explanation for. It's just a being. It's not human. It's not an animal. We don't know what it is. And then with the mist, of course, I had this, kind of silvery clouds floating through, the stars, and obviously just like a fog bank, but I wanted it to seem a little bit cooler than that. So I gave it a capital M and a Y to spell mist, just to spice things up a bit. And so a lot of the creatures I use, I'm really into, Celtic lore and all of that. So although I am switching things up so that they work for my story, I'm trying to stay as true as I can while still making it work with my magic system with all the creatures that you'll see.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
So the lead character, Anya, has a sister and a brother, Ella and Erwin, I think. I can't remember. Yeah, Erwin. And so when you were writing those sibling relationships, did you play on your own family at all for that? Or how did you write? Because they're really different. Ella and Anya are really different.
Yeah, so I basically originally, putting in an older sister was because I have an older sister, and of course in the dream had an older sister. Erwin threw me for a loop. I don't know why he came into the dream, but he was there. But with Ella, what I really wanted to do my whole kind of thought process behind Anya's character and behind why we're focusing on this is I wanted to write a story about the girl who shouldn't have been the main character, because technically Ella has the makings of a main character. And as you read, you'll see, you know, she's, not to give stuff away, but theoretically she has more reason to be who we focused on in this story. And although, you know, Anya goes on these adventures and she's desperate to be special, she doesn't have, at this point at least, the makings of a hero. She doesn't have what it takes. All she has is a desperation to be something more. And I wanted to write a story for girls who maybe didn't feel like they were made to be a main character, who didn't feel like they had what it took. They aren't like those perfect protagonists who don't always think they're good enough, but they always are. And for some reason, everyone's in love with them. I wanted to write one about a girl who, you know, wasn't the prettiest girl in every room, that she just didn't realize it. She's just average in every single aspect, but that there really are no average girls. And so the reason I gave such a contrast between Anya and Ella is I wanted it to be glaringly obvious that Ella would technically be maybe a more interesting character to read about, but it's not for the Ellas, it's for the Anyas.
Well, yeah, that's a theme throughout the book, is that average lives for average girls is something that she says a lot, and she's trying to sort of overcome that like base expectation. She wants be more than average, obviously. And so yeah, I was going to ask how you kind of came up with that as sort of the slogan.
That was because it, you know, I wrote the book, the first draft at the time when I was feeling very average in everything I did. I felt like, you know, how was I supposed to compete with all of these amazing people in dance and acting and just regular life? I felt nothing more than average. And I, you know, escaped into books and read about these amazing characters that were so much more powerful and trained and confident than me. And I, you know, wanted a book about a girl who wasn't that. As much as I love all the books I read, I wanted someone who really, really at her core was average, not someone who was average, who was waiting for, you know, a chosen one moment and secretly has all this magic and power, but someone who just had so much want in them that they caught the attention of the stars. And that's what I, you know, kind of went with the average lads for average girls. And for Anya to realize, and what helped me realize through writing it, is that outside perspectives are so pervasive that they become our own perspective. And so Anya had been drilled into by her father's, you know, horrible raising of her, that she was average and she was not special and there was nothing important about her at all. And so that obviously stayed with her, because in her formative years, that's what she was being told and being made to believe. And so her own perception of herself is that she is average and she will have an average life, and that is it.
Wow. Well, see, that's just amazing to me, because I think you're just so outstanding. Like, I mean, it's amazing. You're not even 20, and all you've accomplished in your acting and your dancing, and now you've written a book. And I'm just waiting to hear when you run for I guess when you run for office and you change the world, because you're just unbelievable. So that's, I love that you wrote that sort of insecurity into Anya and kind of worked through that with her. That's really neat. You could feel that in the writing. And so for Dax and Anya, that was a fun dynamic with that. That seems like that would have been the fun part to write.
Absolutely. I love writing banter. I love comedy, as I'm sure you can tell from the roles I've done. And so I loved being able to, you know, play on banter and back and forth. And with the two characters, I'm sure reading it, people will notice that the two things I'm kind of okay at writing are dialogue and action sequences. And other stuff I, you know, sometimes have to push myself. But with writing dialogue, I can really you know, hear their conversations in my head. And so I'm able to sort of just, I honestly feel like writing for me is just transcribing. So writing the banter was kind of just coming up with this imaginary scenario in my head and watching it play out and just typing down what they're saying to each other.
Was that hard though, going through the editing process, being that it was so personal and this connection with Dream and everything like that? Like refining it and through the editing process?
I mean, definitely. I actually added the entire beginning changed a little bit, because it used to, fun fact, it did not used to have Atten. That island was added because I was reading it and I was like, this beginning is so boring and so slow, and I would put this book down. And so I scrapped most of my beginning and added in Atten, which then of course added about 100-ish pages to my original manuscript that I was like, this isn't great. And the hardest part in the editing process was actually that my book, like I said, it was 600, 700 pages long, was too long to be a YA fantasy debut. And so what I had to do through my rounds and rounds of querying that I did, I got some good feedback from agents that I had to cut my book in half. And so I had to move around a few things that happened. And what was really hard is the timeline is very, very interwoven, and there's a lot of interpersonal dramatics that happen in the book, especially there's some betrayal, there's a lot of confusion on Anya's part of who to trust, and who she trusts at any given time is very important. And so when I had to move things around, I call them the puzzle pieces in my own talking of it, to make it work as one book, and then a second book that I'm editing right now and trying to make work. So when I was splitting it up and doing the first book, I had to, really, really edit and dive in and be like, okay, she trusts this person right now, she doesn't trust this person, but I originally wrote it where she already had this information. The island of Corling used to come near the very end of the book, which it still does, but it came at the very end of the journey. Like, it was right before Dadair, not before. And so I had, those words won't mean anything to anyone who hasn't read it, but for those of you who have, the island she visits, Corling, was what would be the ending of book 2, near there. And so I had to move that around. So the plot twist that we get at the end of book 1, because I'll just come out and say there's a plot twist, had already happened. And so for the entire time she's in Corling, she already had the information that she gets at the very end of book 1. And so I had to completely rewrite all her interactions with certain characters to make it work with where her brain space was and what her knowledge was. So that was definitely the hardest part, especially because just to see if I would get different responses, I lied about my word count when I started querying to more people after realizing I had to cut it up, and I said it had already been edited and was like, yeah, it's this long. And then I got some responses and had to very, very fast be like, oh, wait, you want to read it? So that was interesting.
Yeah, I was wondering if that's what made you end on a kind of a cliffhanger.
I mean, I love ending on a cliffhanger. I love ending with a, kick to the gut is what I like to think of it as. Obviously I'm a big reader, especially of YA fantasy. And as much as I hate finishing a book and thinking, wait, that's too much of a cliffhanger, I need the second one right now, that's exactly what I want to do to people. And I'm also into a very full circle feeling with beginnings and endings. And something you'll see when reading Stars and Swashbucklers is that the beginning and the ending tie into each other. So it's basically come right around to the beginning. And that's something I do with I'm planning to do with pretty much all of my books, at least in this series, which will be 7 books long, wish me luck.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
But that, that yes or no that's been echoing in her head and all of that, that's a full circle feeling as we come to the end.
Now, if they were to make a adaptation of it, would you want to play Anya?
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like I can't even lie about that and be like, oh, I don't know. Obviously. It's I had to very much get into her head to write it. And obviously she has some pieces of me and her. And, what was really interesting in writing the story was realizing how every single character almost has a piece of me. So, pieces of me are strewn in Anya, obviously, because to get to that true first person POV of being in her head, which I was lucky being a teenager, it's easier to write a teenager's voice because it's, my voice, it's the voice of a teenager. but I had to dive into her and her character and her psyche to, fully understand her and write a truthful book from her point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel, very close to the character, obviously. And so playing her on screen would definitely be a huge dream of mine.
Would you cast do you think any of your co-stars would be good fits for other roles?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not giving anything away because it's characters that I can't talk about quite yet, but I have some friends that are actually exactly how I pictured some of the characters that will just be a kind of, a quick direct offer like, hey.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. I was really impressed by it. I'm not the biggest fantasy person. So it's not exactly my genre, but I really enjoyed it. I thought the action was really fun. I thought the banter between Dax and Anya was really engaging. Like the characters, story. I think you did a great job.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. We've done, since you've been on 4 times, we've done our regular questions. We have a Christmas questions. We have regular get to know you questions. So today you get a special group of questions.
Oh my God. Okay.
And so I don't know if you ever heard of the Actors Studio. It was this where James Lipton would bring people on and he would ask them at the end of the interview to ask them these questions. They're called the Proust Questions. Okay. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. What's your favorite word?
Oh, I like the word nap. Surprisingly, I don't like taking naps, but it's just a nice word.
Okay.
I'm just going with it.
What's your least favorite word?
Least favorite word? Ooh, I'm gonna say my least favorite word is enough.
Okay. Yeah. So what turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally? Like makes you excited?
I think probably for me, I'm gonna go with sailing and just being near the ocean.
Mm. So what turns you off? You don't like?
Probably repetition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Now, normally he would ask what your favorite curse word is, but since it's Hallmarkies, we'll skip that one. What sound or noise do you love?
Ooh, the sound of my dog snoring.
Oh, that's cute. What sound or noise do you hate?
I'm gonna be really basic and say nails on a chalkboard.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
So my alarm in the morning.
This might be hard because you have like 5 professions, but what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Okay, sort of niche. I would love to join something like Sea Shepherd and just be kind of a global activist and help save the ocean.
Mm-hmm. I could see you doing that. Okay, what profession would you not like to do?
Accounting, anything that would require business school.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You did a good job.
Well, very good. All right, you did it. You answered all the questions. Well, congratulations on the book. I think that's a great accomplishment. And I can't wait to see what you do next. You got the show, you've got Monster High. It's really incredible. We got to get you back in a Hallmark movie one of these days.
Yes.
So where can people get the book and follow you on social and all?
So the book is available everywhere you buy books. It's available on Amazon. It's available through Barnes and Noble. And I always suggest that you ask your libraries to order it in because I'm a huge lover of libraries, and get indie bookstores to order it in to support small bookstores and also support me. And you can find me online on social media at Lilah Fitzgerald on every single platform. I don't really use Facebook much anymore, so by every single platform, I mainly look at TikTok and Instagram.
Very good. Yeah, and we'll have our affiliate link in the description if people want to check it out. You can help us out that way as well. And thanks again for coming talking with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to thank Lilah for coming on the podcast. I think she's just such an impressive young lady, and I really always look forward to talking to her. So definitely check out the book. and also all the other interviews that we've done with her over the years. And you can follow me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes and on Goodreads. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast at Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really, really appreciate that. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group and merch store. Check that out. And thanks again to Lilah. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.